So here we are, a lot of things going on. I have so much to say. I wanted to begin by saying some things that are coming up. Because this is an eclipse tonight, this is a lunar eclipse, a penumbral lunar eclipse. It is a full eclipse, pretty much 95% on the West Coast and throughout most of the US. So when you look up in the sky tonight at 12:01, we're going to be in the middle of an eclipse. Well, on a lunar eclipse, the moon will turn red. It'll get dark, basically. So it's very powerful, and it's about things that are changing, things that are releasing, things that are letting go, which are always things that happen at full moons and new moons. But when it's an eclipse, it takes about 6 months for that to happen. And so it's not something that happens on the day, it's something that happens over time, over a period of time. But this particular one, first of all, we have the full moon in Libra, solar Aries, right? So we've got the subject of relationships up big time. All our relationships with each other, with our partners, with our workmates, with our country presidents, right? Kings and queens and all of that, relationships. And so full moon in Libra, right? And what about me, Aries? So that's some of the energy that's flowing right now. And this is what I wanted to talk about to start. The next new moon, which is in 2 weeks from now, which is April 8th, it will be a total 100% solar eclipse, crossing right through, swashing through from New York to Texas in this big, big arc. And whenever there's an eclipse, right, there's big change, and it's happening in the United States. So, it's not hard to guess what the subjects might be. But, of course, they affect us too. And I've been seeing a lot of things on, YouTube and different places where people are saying, it's the end of the world, and all of that. And of course, that's just as always, the sky is falling people out there where people get a little bit of information and, turn it into media and followers and things like that. So, it is a change though, absolutely. And for your information, what's going to be happening on the new moon, I'm going to be teaching a live meditation for the first time in a long, long time, besides at Meditation Mount. This is the first one I'm going to be doing live in Malibu at Olander, at Lee McCloskey's unbelievable house, the Hieroglyph of the Soul, that I invite you to. If you can come, we may record and we may not, and I'm not sure about that because it's going to be about light because it's a really interesting kind of space. It will be so powerful. I can't tell you. If you were going to be someplace for the new moon, I would put you there. It's going to be powerful and beautiful. It's an experience. It won't be like anything you've ever experienced before. It's powerful. So I really encourage you, if you're in the LA area, to come to this. And it will be, I'm teaching on April 6th, which is a Saturday night, and at 7 p.m. Lee McCloskey, who is the artist and an esoteric teacher in his own right, and an actor, actually, of course, in Hollywood, right? He is going to give a tour at 6 p.m., which you're welcome to, which I really recommend that you do go to. So if you do come, it starts at 6 basically, and I will start teaching at 7. So if you can make it, please do, because it's going to be something. So I thought I'd start with that because of what is coming. So we have only 2 eclipses this year, which are for 2024. And that's tonight, and the next one at the new moon. And that one will be in Aries. And so talk about, right? So that is going to be a time of the finale of change in a way. So we've got 2 weeks to play with right now, to work with the energies that are happening and use the energies that are happening to choose consciously what we want to move and become, and what is in our life and up in our life right now, because that's going to be, of course, the subject that needs our attention, because it's kind of a radical thing that's happening where what was will be different in some way. And so how do you want to work with this sort of power of change, let's call it that, the power of change? So if there's something that you you're wishing would change, you get the new job, you get into a new situation in some way, you move, those kinds of things can be very evocative to that, where you start on a new program, you start writing your book, you get into physical health in a new way, and you can look at your chart to see where in your chart this energy is falling. And that'll give you a clue of the subject, although there's much more to it than that. But you can always look at that. So we're at the new moon, and right now it's at 6 degrees Libra. That's where you'd look on your chart, 6 Libra. And so wherever Libra falls in your chart is the house, the mansion, the subject matter of this full moon. Libra full moon. Coming up will be the Aries new moon total solar eclipse. So that's going to be, it'll be in the opposite point, right, from your chart. So wherever it is, Libra in your chart, the opposite point is Aries. So you can see what is the subject conversation that's going on in the sky right now. That is the subject for you right now. And I really want you to think about that, because I'm going to ask a question in the meditation that you get to work with, to think about, what are you ready? What is needing to be released? This is what I wrote down. What is needing to be released in order to let the new in? Yeah? What might be blocking that? Now, what could be blocking what is trying to come in? Well, it's usually fear, isn't it? Because if I do that, then this could happen. We're very nervous sometimes, or hesitant to make big leaps. But if there's a big leap time, it's now. So what is your big leap, I wonder? I love talking about it like that. The card I pulled before we started, which I thought was so nice, is from the Tree Oracle. This is just all tree cards. And this one doesn't look like a tree, but it's a tree card. And the word is universe. And I like that, just laying that into this mix of what is needing to be released now in order to let the new in. That big leap in your life, what are we talking about? So things that we might have been hesitant to do. I've noticed for myself in the last couple of weeks that I've done things that I've been putting off for years. So I wonder, and I just spontaneously did it. I wasn't really looking at this or the charts right now, but I just can look back over the last 2 or 3 weeks, and I have done some things that I was putting off, like big time putting off. Big conversations. One of them was I called my publisher to find out the status of my book, because I didn't know. And I was so afraid to call that I let 1.5 years go by before I called him, because I was so afraid he'd say, well, we're sorry, Diana, but we decided not to do your book any longer. And the reason I thought that was because of an email I'd gotten from somebody over there 1.5 years ago, but meanwhile, a lot of stuff was happening in my life with my mother and my father, etc. Some of you know. Anyway, I finally called, put it off for 1.5 years. This was a week ago. And all of it's fine. And none of it is what I feared. None of it was what I feared. So sometimes you just have to do it. And, I'm a big procrastinator at times too. So I understand, that it's hard sometimes to move. But When you're in Libra, Aries, cardinal energy, it's time to move, like you need to move. Otherwise, the energy gets stagnant, right? So that's another thing you could ask yourself. What is stagnant in my life right now? What feels sleepy? What needs to wake up? Where do I need to pay attention? It's usually pretty obvious. And of the things that I did in the last few weeks that just spontaneously happened, I wrote this letter, I made that call, I started a new project, 2 new projects actually, and these were things that I've been thinking about for a long time. And I know for myself, and I call it sitting on an egg, I know for myself to not push myself, to move when I'm ready to move, right? And when I push myself, I get out of sync with flowing timing and God timing versus ego timing. So I always know that I have to just move when it's time to move. And a few weeks ago, I got this strong impulse to make some movements. When I saw the charts for tonight and the next new moon, I went, well, of course. So you may have, just like I already did, started this. You may already be in action on these things. And remembering that sort of the underlying question is, what is needing to be released in order to let the new thing in, be, create, exist, right? What am I blocking? And that's another way to say it, because sometimes we're so afraid of the change because we don't know, we can't control the change, or we don't know what the change is going to look like, that we will try to, like by willpower, just, stay set because better the devil you know. But this is a time of movement. And so wherever that is, now this can be movement of mind, right? Changing your mind about something, movement in action, what you're doing in your life, how you're doing it, movement in relationship, movement in your body, how you relate to your body. It can be anything. It doesn't have to be like the obvious thing of, I'm going to change jobs. It doesn't have to be that, but it could be that. And if you've been hesitating or procrastinating, this is a good time to use this meditation tonight specifically to get some insight about that. So when we go into the meditation in a moment, we're going to talk about, I want you to call in from your soul, from your higher self, advice. Like, what would help me right now about the subject I think it is? Is it the subject I think it is? Is it more than one subject, right? It might be a couple of things that are happening here if you're a Gemini. Kidding. But it could be 10 things, right? It could be everywhere. But it could be anything in your life. And we're going to ask for guidance in that so that that window can be opened and we can allow in our next step, whatever that is. Life is so interesting, you never know. You can just turn one corner and it's a different world. You're walking this way, walking this way, walking this way, walking this way, walking this way. And it seems like, and you're kind of following along, and then one day you go, whoop, and you follow that path, and it's like another planet of interestingness, of discovery, of opportunity, of awareness. A new friend. You know how when you get a new friend in your life or a new partner in your life, how, what you do, what you can learn, what you can be available to, what you get shown, what gets shared with you, right? From somebody else's personality and perspective. What they're interested in, suddenly you're interested in too, right? So it gets very sparky. And Aries is sparky. So we're in Libra full moon, so relationship and how we interrelate. But also, like I said, what about me, right? What about the self? And that self, I make a distinction when I'm teaching about the self between self-centered and centered self. Isn't that wonderful? And you really do need to be centered self. Self-centered is, it's a closed and fixed system. The other thing I've been teaching lately, and I love to say it because it's so funny and true. It's funny because it's true. The ego is a narcissist. So if you think of it that way, if all of our egos are narcissists in a sense, which is true, me only, right? Then it gives another perspective of that, narcissist gets bandied about quite a bit, I think way more than is real. I don't think everybody's a narcissist. I think we all have a part of us that can be, though. And that's that difference between self-centered and centered self. Well, centered self knows what it knows. It stands in the power of its knowing. Self-centered wants everyone else to bend and cooperate to them, at their cost, right? But centered self thinks of the higher good, always considers everything that it's moving through. I just have one more thought about this that I'll add that I think is interesting. I think that why, when you see people that are extremely self-centered, I'm just going to use that word instead of narcissistic, very self-centered, the reason that they succeed in the way that they do, and there's a lot to this, I could talk a lot about this, but I'm going to just say it in a simple way today. The reason they succeed is because they don't really care how it affects others. Right? They've got A to B. They want this and they're going there. And they use willpower and they do that. And if 12 people get thrown off the merry-go-round, oh well. Right? And when you're centered self, if I harm someone, I'm harmed. Right? So there's I would never be able to be in that self-centered place because it would hurt me too much. And the more sensitive me too much, it would hurt me too much. So us that are healers and meditators and sensors, we are the intuitives of the world and the healers of the world. We cannot do harm. But we do need a centered self. Otherwise you can become enabling and all of that thing where you actually are supporting a person that's very self-centered, right? So it's this art. And so the healer needs to have a sense of self. Has to. Otherwise they just get eaten up, right? Dissolved into the energy, thrown off the merry-go-round. And all these valuable teachers and thinkers and artists and healers are not being used to their best. And so with Aries Libra energy, and the next new moon is Aries, that's about self. And so as we are playing in this meditation tonight, between that axis of other and self, just put that in the mix of what you're meditating in. Like, where is your sense of self? Are you a centered self? Is that maybe the subject that needs to be brought forth so that you can do the work that you're here to do? When I do charts, what my whole focus is personally is, why were you born? What are you here for? What stops you from doing it? And where is it free and easy? And that is the conversation I want to have, right? And that conversation is a really interesting one. And it's the same one that we're really talking about now, is why are you here? And are you doing that work? And if there's not a sense of self there, right, you can dissolve into the strongest personality in the room. Well, what if the strongest personality in the room is a low energy vibration being, right? And so you don't have to go fighting anybody or battling it out, but don't lose yourself. That's Aries. Don't lose yourself, right? You can be aware of the other, but don't lose yourself, because we need you. The world needs you so much right now, needs us. And so us conscious souls, that are working on ourselves. So I already can tell, like, this is something, when the way I was going to talk about this and now how I am talking about it is because of the group that's here, right? This is important because we need to know who we are and the value of what we bring, right? Whatever that is. And it's a humble offering, right? You know how I always say, the small thing that I offer. But it's small, but it's everything. It's all I have to offer, really. You know, it's everything I've got is in this moment that I'm offering. Like, so when we are in our work or, you know, on a walk or, you know, at work or whatever, wherever in traffic, you know, this small thing is an ethic. It's a code. It's a way to live that you let the guy go first if they want to, like, who cares, right? Instead of being angry for 20 minutes in the car because somebody cut you off, right? And even if they do cut you off and you would have let them in, you know, they still cut you off. You know, there's still that, you know, you don't have to carry that for the next minutes, hours, right? People come home 2 hours later still mad and tell the story about what happened to them in traffic that morning, right? So how do you let that stuff go? Is by your sense of self. So there has to be a self. So when you're constantly erasing yourself as if you don't exist or you don't want to be trouble to anyone or anything, then there's no centered self. And there's no self-center either. It's just like, and women, right? This is our work, to have a sense of yourself that you bring into the world. Because, especially these days, because this is a time of the awakening divine feminine, right? We need us now, women, girls, right? Crones, the whole gamut. We need that voice in this world more than we've ever needed it. And it's been a long time, right, supplanted. So now is a time for it to come awake. Well, there still has to be a self for that to happen through. So if you negate your body, you negate your persona, you negate your thinking, I'm not smart enough, I'm not pretty, I'm not intelligent, or whatever, the things that are not creative enough, I don't have access, I don't have enough money, all these things become limitations instead of just showing up like you are, centered self, Om. So from there, we're going to go into the meditation. That's perfect. So I'll light my candle. You can light yours if you like. Get yourself comfortable where you are. You can use my candle if you don't have a candle, if you want to focus on something. Or you can just light a candle, just hold the space. You could light one internally. What is needing to be released in order to let the new thing in, or to be free, to be released, to be uncensored, to show up in your life. Why are you here? Good Aries question, right? That's the solar. Libra question is, how do I do that in a way that feels okay to me? You know, in my relationship, in my work, in everything. And so, when you're ready to, take a few breaths and just organize yourself to your breath. Inhaling and exhaling to bring yourself back into your body fully and completely present. Heart connected to everyone that is part of this group and that are meditating tonight, which are millions around the world, light to light to light, interconnected light, interconnected light. And just feel your part in that, and that every one of us is valuable. It's not even close to big enough of a word to the process of what's happening on the planet right now. And we always have been and always will be. Recognizing your point of focus as unique and sacred. My point of focus is unique and sacred. What I see, how I see, what even is in my view, what comes to me, what's around me, whether I live in the cave at the top of the Himalaya, or I'm right in the hustle bustle of Hollywood, right? Can you feel the difference between the two energies of being on the 405 and the 101, or being in a monastery at the top of a mountain? Do you see how they're both important for different reasons, right? So the ones that I call on the front line, which I feel I am, and you probably are, the ones of us that are in it, the world, right, is hard because there's a lot of energy coming in, right? And then there's those ones that are holding the frequency for the whole planet, the Dalai Lama and many unnamed teachers and saints and holy beings around the planet, and named ones that are holding the space. And that's hard too. But I want to say to you all that it's also a privilege. Right? So we have the privilege of holding the space from our centered self. And so from your centered self, feel your attention move into the heart of the cave center, in the center of the head. Breathing here gently as if you could breathe through the center of your head. Opening up the third eye as you do, awakening the third eye. And it's as if the eye opens, or it's already open, and you see. And as you sense that, say to yourself this powerful mantra, I see. And of course, that seeing is 360 degrees in all directions. And of course, that seeing is also throughout time and space, both past and future and present. I see. And you take a different stance within yourself, a posture of consciousness that has no limitation of time or space. It is simply pure consciousness, beingness, breathing through the third eye into the heart of the head center. And as you breathe into the heart of the head center, and you feel your center, gently sense the heart chakra, sense the solar plexus, sense the second chakra, just sense these. Sense the first chakra. Sense the chakras in your feet. You feel yourself centered. centered self. Om. And from that position of that pilot seat within the cave center, as you take your seat here consciously, simultaneously the crown chakra will open, and you can sense the presence of the overlighting soul. And you bring this energy, allow this energy to merge, to have union, communion, right, with, right, self, soul with self, which translates as conscious self. And so when you're in your centered self, you can trust your impulses because they're soul directed. Soul directed, not ego directed. Soul directed. What is the highest good for all concerned? And so it lets you be a lot freer, you know, because you can trust those intuitions as they come, because they're coming from, in a sense, this higher part of you that you're constantly translating and learning how to apply to the life. And so in this presence now, soul with self, have an experience of that as I say the phrase, soul with self. Let yourself experience that as an energy vibration. I've been talking about this lately like this, as an experience, not as a thought, as an experience. Soul with self. The experience of soul with self. You will vibrate. The body hums, thrums. Some will see color, light, sound, vibration. As these things come together, soul with self. And it is in this space now we ask, what might I be needing to release in order to let the new in? What might I need to let go? A thought, a fear, a thing, in order to be free, to be myself, to be that gift that you are in your world. Sometimes, for me, it was definitely something as simple, but as hard also as shyness, right? Shyness. I had to be willing, right, to let that go in order to speak. That whatever it is for you, in the presence of the soul, ask and listen now. And ask if there's anything else or anything else to understand about this that would help or make it clearer or more doable or more effortless. So much of change is just recognizing what it is. And so you're saying to Spirit, what else? Is there anything else to know? Is there anything else to understand? That would help me right now. And sometimes, just like in physics, when a butterfly flaps its wings in California, there can be a tornado in China, right? Sometimes, most times, those energies that are moving within us are bigger than us and trailblaze and pioneer the trail for a lot of others' movements. So your bravery, your courage, your sense of self makes it so that others can also take their steps. And as you see yourself now moving into your next step, that new color of who you are, that's not getting rid of any of the old colors, but is just adding a new one. See that kind of rainbow light shining from you like a halo out into your world. And as you do, sense other beings around the planet also kind of popping open with you, having also this awareness in some way, in their way. They might be having a dream right now that changes their life because of what you're doing right now. So we're affecting each other, you know. Consciousness begets more consciousness. Love makes more love. Peace makes more peace. And you see the world awakening. All around the planet, there are so many awake beings and awakening beings because of what's happening. So much consciousness now. And see little bouquets of light opening up all around the planet. Little healings in you too. Little healings, big healings, complete healings. Realizations, initiations, awakenings happening now. And you breathe this rainbow light into your own awareness. And as you breathe it in, you feel your mind and your consciousness creative, open. And as you exhale, you breathe out that awakening creative consciousness to everyone, everywhere. And you make a blessing to the world. All blessings to all beings. All blessings to all beings. And you see more lights, rainbow lights around the planet. All blessings to all beings in all places, in all ways. All blessings to all beings. And you're now living in that rainbow light yourself that is always there. It doesn't go away. We can get used to it, or we forget that it's there, but it's always there. It's always there now. It's part of you. It's in your vibration. And then you let your breath get deeper and fuller. From wherever you are on the planet, there's people here in India and Bali, in Sherman Oaks, in London, in Tokyo, in Canada. All these lights, all these awarenesses, and you let your breath get deeper as you make it part of you, integrating it by your breath. You use your breath like the tool, right, that does that work of comprehending, in a sense, and organizing the new energy with the existing energy until it harmonizes as one, as you, centered self. Om. I am centered. Om. Good. And when you're ready to, letting your breath get deeper and fuller until it starts to feel natural, to transition out of this meditation when you're ready to. Good. Nice. Really good. I love when meditation or teachings take their own way. I have this plan. Then it goes. I trust it completely. Always. No resistance. Right? I follow, love around. Right? And that's what you're doing too. You're learning to do that by having that connection all the time, that you begin to have a relationship in regard to everything that you think, do, and be. So thank you. And someone was asking how to sign up. I'm going to be for the Olander Hieroglyph of the Soul experience. I'll be sending an email out on that in the next couple of days. And you'll see all the directions, because it's not through me, it's through them. So I really recommend it. It'll be a very powerful way to spend the eclipse, this big one that's coming. And also, just so you know, the next full moon is Monday, April 22nd. The eclipses will be over, so we'll have come through that, and then we'll do that. And also, these meditations for the full moon are always up on YouTube the next day, so you can always listen to them again. They're just up there. So I hope I get to see some of you at the hieroglyph of the soul. And I hope you have a really powerful and realizing self-realization month where the self is realized. Self-realization is realizing the self. Well, there has to be a self for that to land into. So don't erase yourself. There needs to be the container, right, of a self. So here we are in the Aries-Libra axis, right, self and other. And we're making that balance in our life now. So thank you for coming tonight. I'm so glad you're here. And I hope you have a great month. And I'll see you at the next turn of the moon. Thank you, everyone.